technical stuff. So the last time I was on a stage, can you guys hear me okay? All right, cool. Last time I was on a stage, I was holding a guitar in one hand and probably a beer in the other. So this is like a very kind of new experience for me. But hi, my name is Marissa Lerer. I'm the Chief Technology Officer at Composed. We are a digital marketing agency in New York. We do fashion and beauty marketing mostly. I'm also lucky enough to be a wife and a mother and a teacher and a cake decorator and a musician. So a lot of different things going on. I said I was lucky to be these things, and that's sort of a funny word for it because it downplays skill and hard work, and it downplays mentors and friends and family who got me from school to MTV, to my first steps as a programmer at the chopping block, and eventually to the C-suite of a marketing company with an impressive client list. So lucky, I'll bet that most of the men in this room kind of remove that from their vocabulary. Men tend to accept their accomplishments as their own, like something that they've rightly earned. So I'm going to take that out of my vocabulary as well. No more lucky. So if it's not luck, what is it? Because I know so many brilliant and dynamic women, and each of them knows some more brilliant and dynamic women who aren't up here right now, who for whatever reason, maybe they were forced to choose between a career and family, or maybe they were passed over for not being a culture fit, or maybe they just didn't fit into gender norms and they felt like their code wouldn't compile because of it. So yes, we're here to talk about women in tech, a subject you've probably never heard covered before. It's funny, right? Because we're always talking about women in tech. And somehow it's 2016, and everywhere you look, there's another story about why women aren't entering tech, why women don't get promoted, why tech companies should hire more women, why stories about sexual harassment, about hiring practices, about discrimination, retention, wage discrepancy, childcare, blah, blah, blah. And let's be clear for a second, it's ridiculous that we're having this conversation. The truth is, for me, it's been pretty great to be a woman in tech. And it's been a good experience for everyone around me to have a woman in their circle. So a few months ago, I met a woman at a conference, kind of like this, and she said to me, "Oh, I see you're wearing a dress." She asked me if she could wear a dress to an interview. Ooh, sorry. Not even should she wear a dress, but could she? As if there was some invisible force field around dresses that prevented the person from writing an algorithm on a whiteboard. I didn't know what to say, not about the dress necessarily, but, well, you can see I have a lot of things to say about that. But I didn't know what to say about how absurd it was that here was this young woman preparing herself for her very first interview in the field that she had studied, and that was the thing that she was most unsure about. There's an ugly subtext here, the thing she wasn't saying. Her question wasn't, can I wear a dress to an interview? It was, will my femininity be held against me? So those of you out there who are doing the hiring, in your quiet moments, can you admit to yourself that maybe you've held that same unconscious bias? Well, that's good. I have definitely experienced those things, but I think that this is something that we should just be conscious of. The fact that she was even questioning it. I knew what I wanted to answer. I knew I wanted to be able to say, yes, of course, you can wear whatever the hell you want, as long as it's how you best present yourself. But I knew the real answer would be more like maybe. And so this talk is in part a longer version of that maybe. So quick story, my journey from here. I was born and raised outside of Washington, D.C. I have two great parents, both lawyers, and an older brother, also a lawyer. I am the white sheep of the family. I was very serious about music all through high school, and I liked tech, but I never considered myself a nerd. I went to NYU for music education, and then I got a master's degree in graphic management. and I dabbled in graphic design as a way to enhance my music career. After that, I started working in marketing. I'm ferociously ambitious, and I vigorously pursued every opportunity, even though I wasn't always sure where it would take me. For instance, when I was slumming it as a graphic designer on TV, all I wanted to do was make cool stuff that moved and functioned. I yearned to code something and break into the boys' club. At MTV, it was all men. But MTV they had classes that you could take in the building, and also they had tuition reimbursement. So if you're ever in a company that offers tuition reimbursement, take it and run with it. Also, if you are running a company and you don't offer tuition reimbursement, seriously consider that as a perk, because you never know when you're going to create your future programmers and CTOs. So because of my desire to be more, I found myself at the School of Visual Arts in New York, and I met my mentor and future boss, Matthew Richman, from the chopping block. And even though I'd never coded anything before, my will and determination convinced Matthew to take a chance on me. His team, made up of mostly men, was made only stronger by bringing on a woman coder. He knew that having women on the tech team was smart business, and I used being a chick coder to my advantage, and it worked out for not only me, but for the whole team. I want every woman and every hiring manager to have that same experience. If you're the only woman on your team, you may find yourself carrying not just your own career, but the careers of women who follow you. So why is this talk different? I'm not going to spout a whole bunch of BS about women are the best coders and they should be, a majority of your team. That's not true. The question is not should we be hiring women? It's we need to have an equal team with differing perspectives. We know that men and women communicate differently and problem solve differently, multitask differently. Men are raised to be better at some things and women at others. But the key is to balance both genders and both genders' abilities and weaknesses. So much has been said about why women do things better or why men do things better, but what the statistics are saying is that we need both genders at the table to be successful. And here's what happens to a company when they're not doing that. Just imagine what that table looked like when they came up with this idea. So let's look at some numbers for a second. Because tech is starting to diversify, we have some data. Diverse companies just do better, and that makes sense. Not everyone using your product is going to look like you or act like you or spend like you. Having a wide range of perspectives gives any startup or manufacturer a better chance at a great product market fit. Women are half the population. I shouldn't have to say that, but it should be obvious. I mean, let's look around this room for a second. There's not a lot of us in it. So if you're cutting women's perspectives out of the design, creation, and marketing of your product, you risk alienating half or even more than half of your consumer base. This effect isn't just in tech companies, by the way. A McKinsey investigation into women in business found that Fortune 500 companies with at least 3 female directors have a 66% greater return on invested capital, 42% better return on sales, and 53% better return on equity than those with fewer than 3 female directors. In other words, this doesn't apply only to teams, but the leaders of those teams as well. So why should we hire women? Okay, this shouldn't be a question, but statistically speaking, plenty of hiring managers are asking themselves that question and moving on. Some questions. So here are some answers. Should I switch? Okay. I will switch. Can you hear me better now? Is this off now? Okay. Yay. Sweet. All right, so why hire women? Well, because your reputation matters. Diversity can feel like a chore and not relevant to those of us who are thinking in ones and zeros. But coding is a creative endeavor. How we get from concept to innovation can be influenced by the person writing those functions, and having varying perspectives can only benefit the final product. Sometimes it can feel like it only matters to people who are watching the industry for when it fails, but your future engineers, including those women who are going to bring all that perspective to the table, are watching too. And so they're the ones that can make a difference between a startup that dies with a whimper at TechCrunch and one that sponsors a stage like this. So why hire women? Because your recruiting and retention matters. A Gallup study on workplace diversity showed that companies with diverse teams had a 22% lower rate of employee turnover than more homogeneous companies. That's important because onboarding new employees can be expensive and time-consuming. If you've got a good employee, you want to keep them. An inclusive culture makes you more likely to do that. And the same study found that companies with a reputation for diversity had an easier time recruiting qualified candidates. All right, so it's time to address the pregnant elephant in the room. Hiring managers are often afraid to hire women because they're worried that maternity leave is the same as turnover. In reality, it's the opposite, and here's what happened to me. These are my twins. Aww. They were born at 31 weeks, and they were under 4 pounds each and had to spend a month in the NICU. And during that time, I was a wreck, but I was also super bored. There's a lot of waiting when your kids are in the NICU, so I decided to keep working. I wasn't supposed to be on maternity leave yet anyway, so I arranged a part-time schedule with my boss that allowed me to work in the mornings, usually from the hospital, and then spend time with my kiddos in the afternoon. It's hard to believe that I managed all of that now, thinking back on it, but it worked out. It kept my mind off of my kids hooked up to big, scary machines. Once they came home, I started my maternity leave, and I found a temporary, suitable replacement for me. He was good enough. No one was as good as I am, of course. But he was good enough to get the job done and hold down the fort. When I came back, there were no servers on fire, no angry clients, no programmers writing expletives in their commits. It was fine. I came back to work when I was ready, and no one forced me. And the important thing was that I made all of this very clear to my boss on the outset. We discussed it. We talked about what would be best for me and for the company and what would have a minimal impact on the business. We came to an agreement together, and it worked out just fine. I came back to work like a boss, ready to show everyone that you can still have babies and do your damn job. So even though I had babies and I had an emergency with those babies, I would never, ever leave my company in the lurch. I am ride or die for my coworkers. And you'll see that same commitment from the women you hire. So maternity leave and paternal leave, let's just talk about that for a second. It's unreasonable and unhealthy to not support family leave. And if your employers don't have a policy, it's time for you to help make one. Help them make a policy that supports mothers and fathers, and you can make a positive change because family leave is important, and you'll be setting your company up for success and retention. So here's where I give you some unsolicited advice. The best lessons in life come from failures, and everything we learn about better code, we learn from error messages. So I want to tell you a secret. Somebody talked about this yesterday. It's okay to fuck up. Yeah? So you're here, you're all smart, but you're not just smart. You've dedicated yourself to tech, a space that can feel unwelcoming, and a discipline that seems to prioritize talent over results, especially when those results are coming from a woman. You've had to be twice as good at 2/3 of the pay, and you know why that is? This guy. I don't know if you can see it. So the pressure is high, and any personal failure can feel like you're letting down a whole lot more people than just yourself. Stop it. Stop beating yourself up. No. You can't just be great. Hard work takes a lot of false starts. Innovation comes from taking risks.
no matter how many of those risks result in failures. It only takes one to leave a legacy. And even though you may feel like your failure will disadvantage other women in the field, your great innovation will ultimately mean so much more. And one more thing. Don't let that guy tell you what to do, and don't let him tell you how to do it either. Oh, right, this is my resume. Try a whole bunch of stuff. My resume is kind of all over the map. I have not taken a conventional path from a CS degree to a junior developer and beyond, but one thing remained the same. No matter what I was doing, I was hungry and passionate and excited about the next adventure. I encourage all my junior developers to learn skills outside of a text editor. I expect all my developers, and by the way, we're coming from a front-end side, so I expect all my front-end developers to be able to open and edit Photoshop documents, prep their own assets, and make a good design decision when needed. For me, this always made me a more valuable candidate. I could do it all. But here's something important to remember. Even though you can do it all, make sure you have a focus. HR people find it very difficult to fit you in when you do everything. I learned that after one too many failed interviews. I was the girl who did it all, but I should have been the programmer who can do some other stuff. So have a bunch of stuff in your back pocket that you can use to enhance your passion and focus. And this isn't just for me. In general, women are good at multitasking and being multifunctional. And a lot of women's resumes I've seen look a lot more like mine, where they're exploring careers and picking up every little bit of skill along the way. So recruiters should be looking for these kinds of multifaceted people with varied experiences that will make them a better employee. Work-life balance. You've read a lot of interviews with women where someone asks them, how do you balance your career and family? You've also read a lot of articles about how annoying it is that no one ever asks a man that question. But you haven't read a lot of articles about how to actually do it, because the question is complete bullshit. It's bullshit that tries to trap women into feeling like they're supposed to pick one over the other. That tries to make them feel like if they try too hard at one, they'll be inadequate at both. And by the way, you will feel like a total fuck up in your first year of being a mom or a dad, maybe longer. I'll let you know when it stops for me. So let me tell you a personal story of mom-work balance. My twins just started nursery school, and drop-off is from 8:55 to 9 a.m., 5 minutes. My husband has to be at work like at 7:30 in the morning, so he's not able to drop them off. And my nanny offered, but we'd have to pay her a lot of money to do this, but she offered to come to the house every morning and get them ready and take them to school. But I decided that it was my right as a mother to take my children to school. So here's what my morning looks like. My daughter wakes up around 6 a.m. We hang out, I give her breakfast, she brushes her teeth. My son wakes up at 7:30. He's really, really grumpy. Breakfast, teeth brushing. I struggle to get everyone dressed, freak out because I forgot to make lunch the night before, pretend that 4 grapes, a cup of cheddar bunnies, and a string cheese is lunch, and we are off. We drive 7 blocks to get to school because walking with 3-year-olds would probably take an hour. I drop them off, kiss them goodbye, then go back to my house, walk the dog, and then it's about 9:45. I still have not had coffee. Once I run to Starbucks, I get on the subway, and I am at my office around 10:45, 11 o'clock. This is almost 2 hours after most people start their workday, and officially 45 minutes an hour after our workday starts. Before I put my kids in school, I anticipated this chaos. I needed a really good plan and a whole lot of guts to deal with it. So I met with my boss, and I told him straight up, no matter what I'm doing, I'm disappointing someone. And this time I'm choosing you. Fortunately, our years of good work and boundary setting have given us the kind of relationship where I can not only say that to him, but follow through on it. I show up to work whenever I can. I also stay late. I get my work done, and I am a superwoman. My kids still love me, and I get to watch them climb up the stairs to school every morning. That's a power bitch move, if I ever saw one. So I've made that choice as a working mother to make the things around me work for me. It took a while to get there, but I am there. You'll always be disappointing someone. Just make sure that someone is not you. And don't let the haters say that you're failing because of it. There's a secret. Women have always had careers and families. Only recently in history has it become something that's expected to replace your family instead of making it possible for you to have one. It's time to take it back. I'm going to tell you a radical thing. Get pregnant if you want. Really. Don't spend the years you could be spending with your children agonizing over whether or not to have them. Get pregnant if you want. Go back to work if you want, when you want. Or don't have kids. You are not incomplete if you decide not to have a traditional family. The key here is to be unapologetic for your choices. They are valid because they are yours. How many of you, especially the women in the room, are afraid to ask for help? You should never be afraid. Don't ever be afraid to ask for advice. You might be surprised by how many people like to talk about their own successes. I've had mentors over the years, both men and women, whom I've gleaned all kinds of skills and useful information. Currently, I don't have one, and I'm always sad about not having someone I can ping for salary advice, negotiation stuff, workplace disputes. Even if you think you have your shit together, there may be someone out there who knows a little bit more than you do. So ask help from your bosses, current or former coworkers, friends, not just from people who are your mentors. Don't be afraid to ask for what you want. Before you take a job, negotiate your salary, vacation, and benefits. Sometimes a flexible work schedule might be worth more to you than money, especially if you have kids. Make sure you're listening at the water cooler for other people getting raises and perks and keep up with cost of living increases. Part of the reason for the pay gap is not so much that women don't negotiate their salaries when they get a job. It's that they don't reevaluate their salary and perks as often as men do. Don't be afraid to ask for what you think you deserve. So clearly I have a great boss, and that's a start, but it's not enough. You have to find a mentor, even if you have an amazing boss, the CTO of Compose, for instance. The best thing you can do for yourself is find a mentor, male or female, someone you admire. Maybe it's the way they code, maybe it's the way they seem to effortlessly interface with the product team, or maybe they're a killer negotiator. Or maybe they don't even work in tech at all, but you just like their business savvy. Anyone who has been in business longer than you will have insights and connections that can help you become a better developer and a better leader. Network. This is such an important part of the job. The best thing you can do for your career is get out there and meet a ton of people. Sometimes hearing people talk about networking can feel a little put on, and we're programmers. We believe in eliminating unnecessary complexity. We like to hide in our cubicles, zipped up in our hoodies, but the connections you make with the people in your field, especially with other women, are real. And sometimes they might turn into a red bubble on LinkedIn, but some of them may be valuable business connections, and some of them may become friends, mentors, and collaborators. Finding your people can feel tough when only 10, 15% of the room looks like you, but a like-minded crew that can turn "is it just me" into "me too" makes all the difference between just a job and "I love my career." And sometimes there are no other women in the conference. You are a unicorn, a woman in tech. But you should stop thinking of yourself as the only woman in the room and think of yourself as a pioneer in the field. So, but you're already winning because you're here at a conference. You've won the networking prize. There are also clubs, meetups, and groups. And as the field expands, there'll be more and more opportunities to meet other computer nerds, even lady computer nerds, who want the same things that you do. Every woman in the community that I've met has been smart and supportive. Remember this guy? Screw him. We all succeed when other women succeed, and I've noticed that supporting and celebrating women around them is a common trait of every badass lady coder that I've met. That means celebrating yourself too. Learn to brag, learn to take credit for your accomplishments. I met a woman a couple of years ago. Her name is Regina Thomashauer, or more commonly known by as Mama Gina. And she makes women in her workshops stand up and brag about themselves. Could be something as little as, I brag that I'm here and I'm standing up in front of people. Or it could be as big as, I brag that I'm talking at a conference. Whatever it is, just make it be known to other people that you're doing something amazing. I'm going to skip a few slides if you don't mind. Stop comparing yourself to others. The best thing that I ever did was I stopped comparing myself to other people in the field. There's no one quite like me. You don't know anyone in the field quite like you. Trying to make comparisons to other people with different skill sets and experiences will only make you feel like what you have to offer isn't enough. And that's not true. What we have to offer is valuable precisely because it comes from you. Have confidence in your own abilities, and when you believe in yourself, other people will believe in you too. You're already in the minority as a woman, so you should embrace it as an asset. A career in tech means a life of perpetual learning. Every day there's some other new framework that we simply must learn. So continue to teach yourself something new every day. But it doesn't just apply to coding. Whenever I'm bored, I teach myself something new, like cake decorating. Your hobbies help make you a well-rounded, well-adjusted person that anyone would be thrilled to have on their staff. So here are a couple takeaways. Diverse companies are more stable, more profitable, and more pleasant to work at. Having more women on your team will make it easier to design and maintain products that women want to use. Let's never forget how much money these guys make. So why are we still talking about this? We are talking about this because I've had a lot of guys ask me why I'm talking about this. We're talking about this because it's important. We're talking about this because in the US, we still don't have a female president. We're talking about it because Sheryl Sandberg's shoes are often a massive topic of conversation on the internet. We're talking about it because I belong to a tiny exclusive club of female CTOs, and people are always so surprised that that's my title. We're talking about it because women like me wake up every day feeling like frauds, while our male counterparts just feel like they're doing their jobs. We're talking about this because I describe myself as assertive and decisive, and because I wear a dress, I'm often described as bitchy and bossy. The tech industry is the future, so let's move towards it backwards and in high heels. Thank you very much.
Thanks, Marissa. So, a couple of questions. One of the things that is interesting about your story is that you come from an art background, and so a lot of the conversation about women in technology is like, well, let's just get them into STEM education, but that sort of means we're going to have to wait 20 or 30 years to really, maybe, if that, to convince enough women over time to get those degrees. So could you talk for a second about what it's like for somebody without an art degree, and maybe if we're looking outside of that, without a tech degree, and if we're looking outside of just the normal pool of candidates, like what some of the benefits to those types of people are?
Well, I mean, obviously it does start with the kids, and teaching them STEM, but also, making coding just a part of everyone's life regardless of whether they are techies or not. Like understanding that coding is something that everyone should know how to do in some capacity, and showing how that's relevant to their lives. So for me, when I was doing music, I was like, I need a website, so I'm just going to teach myself to code and make my own website. And that's kind of how I got started. So I think that's a big thing. And then also just having people around you, if you say, like, if someone says to me, oh, I'm kind of interested in making a website, and rather than me teach them how to do, rather than me just make a website for them, I will kind of walk them through the steps. Even if it's as simple as like learning how to use the WordPress admin, like that's already one step more technical than they were. So that's a good way to get in. And again, the mentorship thing is huge. So if a woman even has an inkling of wanting to code, finding a mentor who is a coder that can walk her through that process is huge.
Yeah, and then the networking stuff you said was so huge. And with when Annie and I were going through this process, like meeting people and putting some meat on the bones of what it's like to be in technology and talking to people with interesting problems was a very important component, like almost as important as the code part of it. So what have you learned about that side of it?
Well, so I started in action scripting. That was my first language. And I would go to these like Flash meetups, and I was always the only woman in the room. But I was never scared to be the only woman in the room. But I find that a lot of women will walk into these networking events, be the only woman in the room, and leave. So the key is to just go in and be like, I deserve to be here just like everybody else. And it doesn't matter that I'm a woman. I am a coder. I am here. And you have to just power through. Because if you power through, then the next woman who walks in the room will power through, and the next woman and the next woman.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Marissa. Let's give her a round of applause.